All right, praise the Lord. Okay, as part of our continuation for the Health Week Committee, we have a presentation today on stress management. But before we start, I want to first of all thank the chaplain and the council. I want to also thank the Health Committee and the chairman of the Health Committee for this opportunity to give this presentation. So we'll be looking at stress management for just a few minutes. Stress is all around us. And we know that it's a common problem in our society today. Next slide, please. We'll use this outline to give this presentation this morning. Next slide. I'll start with this quote from Proverbs chapter 12, verse 25. It says that anxiety in the heart of a man causes depression. I'm sure you can see the face of that man, and he looks very depressed. Those of you who watch football, I'm sure that man looks like Onana, the Manchester United goalkeeper, and the present problems he's facing. All right, next slide, please. So we'll define what stress is. That's what we want us to learn today. We'll define stress. We'll list some of the common sources of stress, and then we'll itemize the practical steps we can take in managing stress. This week, last week, I bought fuel for about 50,000 naira. And I told my wife, are you sure we'll not park some of these cars somewhere and start doing fitness work? As a result of these economic situations that most of us are aware of in Nigeria, this fuel subsidy removal, the current price of foodstuff in the market, sometimes you see people in the market quarreling with the people who sell. I told one person that it's not the woman's fault. That's how she bought it. That's why she's selling like that. So because of that, even Benue State citizens as well. Some people have not been paid salaries, some have not been paid arrears and all that. So these are situations that predispose individuals to stress, and we are not left out, which is why we're bringing up this presentation at this very time, so that we look at how do we address situations that can cause stress in our life. Next slide, please. So what is stress? It can be seen as a reaction that people have to excessive pressures. Pressures in life, pressures can come from within you, pressures can come from without. It can be from expectations that people have concerning you. So when these pressures become excessive, how your body reacts to those pressures is what leads to stress. It arises because they are the demands that these pressures they exert on our lives. These demands are more than our ability to cope with these demands. So when your body cannot cope again with the demands that your daily life presents to it, we have wear and tear in both our body and in our minds. And this results in stress. Next slide. So stress, to put it simply, is when the pressure that we face is greater than the resources that we have to cope with those pressures. And then it leads to feelings of worries, anxiety, tension, anger, fear. People react in different ways to this stress. Some of this stress sometimes can be self-generated. You have expectations of yourself and what you want to achieve. And then sometimes how we perceive situations in our life can also result in stressful situations facing us. Next slide. So some of the examples of stressors. Stressors are things that causes stress in our lives. And some of the examples are death. When there's a death in the family, when there's death amongst friends, partner, people that we know, divorce. When we have conflict in interpersonal relationship, husband and wife always quarreling, parents and children always quarreling. These are things that can result in stress. Injury, illness, these are things that can also cause stress. Bankruptcy, unemployment, job insecurity. We have graduates who have graduated for close to 7 years and they don't have any job, or they are doing things that are so menial and not giving them enough finances. These are things that can bring stress to an individual. Bringing up children and hope keeping. For the husbands in the house who think that mothers who are stay-at-home mothers, they don't have work. It's plenty work. Just try and stay with your children for a day. You understand that homekeeping can be a source of significant stress in the family. I had a patient one time who this was a problem for her. She had presented with multiple unspecific symptoms, headache here, something crawling in the body, and she was treated. You know, they will do tests now. They'll do malaria, typhoid tests. She had taken all these myriads of antibiotics and everything. So I told her that this malaria and typhoid is not going. Don't you think can be something else? So I said, okay, let me get a typical work day in your life. And it turns out this woman has 4 children. She wakes up at 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m. to start taking care of the house. There was no helper. Start taking care of the house, make food, prepare the children for school. She takes them to school, come back, wash clothes again. Then by 10 a.m., she goes to her husband's place of business where they sell. She joins him in selling. By 3, she goes and picks the children from the school. When she comes back, they go back to the shop. She cooks in the shop there, and then they continue selling. Then by 6 p.m., she closes. The husband is still at the shop. She goes home to prepare the house. And I told her that 3 people will do this work and still be stressed. You have not recognized the problem that you really face. And for her, she felt that, oh, maybe it's a spiritual problem, maybe it's because she has been taking drugs and she's not getting better. So we had to counsel her, sit her down and let her understand that your schedule is enough to send you to the hospital. So when she finally listened to some of the counseling we gave, luckily for her, and to God be the glory, she got better. I had to call the husband. We did some family conferencing. I said, oh, God, this woman will die in your hand. You better get help for her. Eventually, we were able to secure 2 house helps for that woman. So these are things that can that can be, yes, it's true. Some husbands don't recognize that homekeeping can be a significant problem. They say, what are you doing? It's not this small house. It's not this small house. So you try and stay in that house and see what you can do. So armed conflict as well. We in Benue State are used to this. Every time in the hospital we see people who have been displaced because of terrorism and this herdsmen issue. So that can be a source of a stressor in the life of an individual. Then, not all stressors are bad though. Some can be good. Good things can also cause stress in your life. You just had a job promotion. Good, Abi. But sometimes these job promotions will come with increased expectation on you. Meetings upon meetings, or you had a new job. When you go for you have a new job, you want to impress your boss. And so that puts added pressure on you. And that can be a source of stress. Marriage itself can be a source of stress. You were on your own, living your life. Then you decided to carry somebody else along with you, with our problems and our issues. So that as well can also be a source of stress. Childbirth, we're doing baby dedication today. It's interesting, it's nice, it's beautiful. Until you realize that you are no longer sleeping again. And you have to wake up. In fact, sometimes my wife will express breast milk and give it to me to feed at 2 a.m. Say it's your time. And you will do it. So those are common sources of stress that you must know. Planning a vacation can be a source of stress. Retirement. Unfortunately, we don't think this can be a source of stress, but it is. I remember telling my mother 5 years before she retired, what do you plan to do when you retire? But she didn't take it seriously. Unfortunately, when she retired, that's when she now started worrying. What do I do? What do I do? I have all this time in the world. I don't even know what to do with it. So it's always good to plan retirement ahead of time. Career advancement that was discussed previously. Test and examination for students. So examinations can be a significant source of stress. I had the privilege of consulting in the school health clinic for a few years ago. And I'm sure Dr. Guda can testify, during examination periods, the amount of patients we see there. At one point, I had to ask them, is this one exam fever or is actually malaria fever? What is the issue? So that can be a source of stress. Now, the symptoms of stress can either be physical, mental, emotional, or behavioral. For the physical symptoms, next slide. For the physical symptoms, they can present with fatigue. The person is always tired, always tired. You are eating, but you are tired. You are eating, you sleep, but you are tired. Change in sleep pattern. Some no longer sleep again. They don't sleep very well. They can go to bed, and then they wake up in the middle of the night, and then they cannot sleep again. Some excessive sleeping. Then there's loss of libido, indigestion, dizziness, palpitations, heart beating excessively, headaches, and for the women, it can also result in menstrual irregularities. Sometimes we have students who come and they are worried, why have they not seen their menses? I say, are you writing the exam? He say, yeah. I say, don't worry. After the exam, it will come back. So for the mental symptoms, poor concentration, confusion, disorientation, and then panic attacks. These are some of the symptoms that can, then for the behavioral symptoms, some will now eventually result to drug use as a means of tackling their symptoms. Then we have nail biting. I had a friend then in school. If you look at his fingers, you think he had leprosy previously. The man has chewed everything, all because of the tension that was associated with medical school. Then eating disorder. Some eat too much, and some can't even eat. There's no appetite when they are stressed. Then emotional symptoms can result in tearfulness, anger, outbursts. Sometimes, for those who are married, when you see your wife getting angry with you for no reason, consider whether she's stressed so that you know how to help. And don't just think that anger is out of notice. How is my always angry? No, what did I do? Sometimes it can just be stressed. And then they become increasingly impatient. Next slide. So, there are consequences of stress that is not managed properly. Sometimes we overlook this stress because stress can be chronic. Of course, there's acute stress. They say, come and do a presentation before this large crowd. It can be a stressful situation for some people. That's acute. But when it's chronic, it becomes prolonged for a long time. Symptoms manifest for a long time. So those prolonged or chronic stress, when they are not managed properly, can have deleterious effects on our health. And some of the symptoms they can give, because stress, we have what we call stress hormones in the body, cortisol and the androgen hormones. When they are released, they can cause inflammation in multiple organ systems in our body. When people are stressed, the heart starts beating fast, they start breathing fast, the sweating, their headache. So it affects every organ system from the brain, the heart, and the skin. All parts of our body feel it. And if it's not managed properly and it's chronic, it can lead to some of the illnesses that we'll see in the next slide. So some of those consequences can be in the cardiovascular system. We're talking about hypertension here. Stress increases the contraction of the heart and can lead to hypertension, heart attack, and all those issues. Then immune system, it can reduce your ability of the body to fight against diseases, which can cause some infection in that individual. People who have asthma, stress is a very big factor in precipitating acute asthma attack. Diabetes, stress hormones, they increase the glucose level in our body. It can cause gastric ulcers, it can lead to depression, it can cause skin disorders. Of course, I'm sure some of our students know there are people who, when they go through stress, how do you know that they're undergoing stress? You will see pimples all over their face and say, what is going on? So that can be as a result of stress for such individuals. Now, there are unhealthy ways that people manage stress. One of it is smoking. They take to substance, they drink too much. Some overeat. You see them eating, say, what is going? Say, that's how I manage my stress. I will eat, and I will eat. But some no longer eat again. Then some just carry seasonal film. That's what I would die today with. You sit in front of the TV, you watch movies from morning to night, you become useless to yourself. Those are unhealthy ways that people try to cope with stress. And some just totally withdraw. Sometimes they don't come to church again. You don't see their friends and families again. And you may think the person is backsliding. It's not backsliding, it's just stressed out. And he has not had the privilege of talking to people who can help him or her. And then some resort to pills. And this pill can be a problem. I had an auntie then who was addicted to Valium 5. She could no longer sleep without taking that drug. There was a day a chemist man refused to sell to her, and she almost fought that chemist man because of the addiction she had to that drug. Then procrastinating. Okay, I will do it later, Those are some of the ways that some people cope with their stress, but these are unhealthy ways of coping. Some take it out on others. Women whose husbands are not supporting them properly, they lash out on their children. Husbands whose bosses are not treating properly and the work is stressing him out, lashes out on his children and then his wife as well. And then sometimes it can lead to physical violence. So these are very unhealthy ways by which stress can be managed. So how do we manage stress properly? We reduce our exposure to the stressors. We've talked about stressors previously. And then there are practical techniques that we can use to manage those things. So stress management usually falls under what we call in family medicine, lifestyle medicine. And these are some of the pillars that we use in managing it. We talk about nutrition, exercise, sleep, social connection, avoidance of risky substances, time in nature, and then mind-body technique. We just look at them briefly as we close. Next slide. So, one of the ways you can manage your stressor is to identify the source of stress. You must know what is stressing you before you can say, okay, let me tackle this thing. Is it your work that your stress is coming from? Is it your home front? Is it your career? Is it the television or the news that you listen to? Because at the point in time, I had to delete some social media from my life because I was having too much anxiety. You know, when you invest money in something and then you hear that this thing has crashed, the other one has crashed, the other one has crashed, even your own heart will want to crash. So, and then sometimes when you listen to the news excessively, they are borrowing money for this in Nigeria, but we are not seeing the effect. They are owing salary here. They have collected dollars for palliative. Palliative is not getting to anybody. There was a time in my hospital we were asking each other, did it get to you? Did you get the palliative? You know? So these can be sources of stress. If they are, stop. For those who watch television, fans of Chelsea and Manchester United, that can also be a source of stress. You may not know. You watch football too much, you are addicted to football, and your club is doing poorly, conceding goals terribly. And so that can be a source of stress to you. So identify the source of stress before, no, the previous slide, please, before you can start managing them. Then identify attitudes that promote stress. Those who procrastinate. I was once a victim of this. Do this thing now, you say later. Do this thing now, you say later. Then suddenly you wake up one day and say, now tomorrow, for those, you know, look at these students that just wrote exams now. I'm sure some of them, when they started the semester, they'll say, I'll start reading from the beginning of the semester. And then the beginning of the semester, you're not reading. Suddenly, they announce the date for examination. In my school then, anytime they announce date for examination, SUG always causes issue. Because students are not ready. So they'll meet management and tell management that the students are not ready. They want the exams to be postponed. It was always a bone of contention in the school. So procrastination can be a source of stress. Some of you, because you did poorly in the exam, now you have told yourself, next semester I will start reading early. I said that next semester, may God help us in Jesus' name. All right, to deal with the stressful situations, there are 4 A's that we talked about. Avoid unnecessary stress. The things that you can avoid, avoid it. For now, I have avoided political discussions. They give me unnecessary stress and they make my heart beat unnecessarily. So when you bring Tinubu or you bring US and this one, or you bring Russia and Ukraine conflict, I will just face the other direction. I don't want to hear. I don't want to know. These are sources of stress for me because I was really addicted to watching news and listening to news, and I like those information, but they are affecting me unnecessarily. So when you bring those discussions, we avoid them. Those days when they sold newspapers, we know people that used to almost fight at newspaper stands because they were arguing over this. So alter the stressful situations that you can alter. Don't bottle up things. If you are somebody who gets offended and somebody offended you in church or at your workplace, don't bottle it up. Tell the person, confront the person in a mild manner and try to sort out those issues. Adapt to the stressor. You can adjust. Nigerians have almost adjusted to all these issues that we have as a society. Sometimes you can adjust, can adapt to those stressors. And one thing I want to also say is that learn to say no and stick to that no. There are some people who like to help people. It's not a bad thing. But people take advantage of that and it becomes a source of stress to that person. I had a colleague, he borrows money for the cooperative to help people. And those people will misuse that money and he is indebted. I said, all the money you have borrowed, no one you have used for yourself. You must learn to say no and be comfortable with that no that you have said so that you don't end up, having unnecessary stressors in your life. Accept the stress that you cannot change. There's this serenity prayer that we used to say then, that God should give me the strength to change the things that I cannot change, and to accept the things that I cannot change, and the courage to change the things that I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference. Next slide, please. So physical activity is very important. The church, we're all here. I saw the chaplain on the pictures doing some sit-up, and I was impressed. So physical activity and exercise is very important. We have what we call moderate and high-intensity exercises that we can do. Ensure that you do exercise at least 30 minutes every day, 5 times a week. It can be basic exercises like just walking around your compound. If you have bicycle, you can cycle. If you have skipping rope, you can skip. 30 minutes every day, 5 times in a week. Aerobic exercises, any type of exercise. In fact, washing your car, I know you have people that do that for you, but once in a while, you can wash your car as a form of exercise. Those who farm can farm or you can garden. Those are forms of exercises that we can also do. Then diet and nutrition. Engage in diet, fruits and vegetables, whole grains. These are things that are very important for us. I know most of us are Benue people and we like meat. We'll cut down on the meat and eat a lot of fish instead. Time management and organization. For the students, we've talked about this. No to procrastination. Once the semester starts, organize your timetable, how you are going to be reading and preparing for your exam, so that when the timetable comes out for exam, you are not feeling that stressed because of the exam. Next slide. So there are some stress busters that we have. Listening to music can be a form of stress busting. Relaxation, taking naps, going for slow walks. These are some of the things that can also help. And then the last slide, spirituality, meditation, coming to the church. You know, the Bible says we should not forsake the assembly of ourselves, together. When we come together this morning, while worshiping the Lord, sometimes you forget all your stress. You forget all the problems that you have. So it's necessary for us to always come to fellowship with the brethren, go for music concert, listen to music, adjust yourself. When you are in the church, talk to brethren, talk to elders who can also help if you have issues. Do not keep your issues to yourself. Find people that you can talk to. And then you can also talk to your doctors as well. They have been trained to manage some of these issues that cause stress. Thank you very much. I think that's the last slide.